Did you know that CIA operatives can memorize an entire building layout, complete with security codes and guard rotations, after just one walkthrough? While you're struggling to remember where you put your car keys, these agents are processing and storing complex information at lightning speed. The difference isn't intelligence or some special genetic gift. It's their training methods. Today, I'm going to share the exact memory techniques that intelligence agencies use to train their operatives. These aren't just theoretical concepts from dusty psychology textbooks. These are battle-tested methods that can literally save lives in the field. And the best part? You can use these same techniques to learn languages faster, ace your exams, master new skills, or excel in your career. Imagine being able to absorb information like a sponge and recall it perfectly whenever you need it. Think about how different your life would be if you could learn anything in half the time it takes you now. By the end of this video, you'll have a complete spy-level memory system that you can start using today. I'm going to walk you through 6 powerful techniques and then give you a week-by-week training plan to stack these methods for maximum results. Let's start with something that might sound like science fiction, but is actually based on solid neuroscience. Sleep learning combined with theta wave entrainment and memory triggers. Here's what most people get wrong about sleep learning. They think you can just play a language course while you're unconscious and wake up speaking French. That's not how it works. However, there is a proven way to utilize sleep for accelerated learning. Intelligence operatives use a 3-step process. First, they study their material during the day using active learning methods. This could be anything from memorizing faces to learning technical procedures. The key is they don't just read passively. They engage with the information, ask questions, and make connections. Second, right before sleep, they do a focused review session. This typically lasts 5 to 10 minutes, covering the most important points. They're essentially telling their brain what information is a priority for overnight processing. Third, and this is where it gets interesting, they use theta wave audio during the first few hours of sleep. Theta waves occur naturally during the early stages of sleep when your brain is consolidating memories. By playing theta wave frequencies through headphones, they're amplifying this natural process. But here's the secret sauce that makes this technique spy-level effective. They pair the theta waves with subtle memory triggers. These could be specific scents, barely audible sound cues, or even gentle tactile sensations. Let me give you a practical example. Say you're learning Spanish vocabulary. During your daytime study session, you light a particular candle with a unique scent. Let's say it's vanilla. You review your Spanish words while that scent is present. Before bed, you do your quick review with the same candle burning. Then during sleep, you play theta wave audio while a device releases tiny puffs of that same vanilla scent. Your brain starts to associate the scent with Spanish vocabulary processing. After several nights of this, just smelling vanilla will prime your brain to access those Spanish words more easily. This isn't just theory. Sleep researchers have found that people who use scent-based memory triggers during sleep show up to 40% better recall the next day. One intelligence trainer I spoke with told me about an operative who needed to memorize architectural blueprints. He studied the blueprints while listening to a specific piece of classical music. Then he played the same music softly during theta wave sleep sessions. Within a week, he could recall every detail of those blueprints just by hearing the opening notes of that piece. The practical setup for this is simpler than you might think. You need theta wave audio, which you can find on streaming platforms or specialized apps. You need a way to introduce subtle sensory triggers during sleep. This could be as simple as a reed diffuser for scents or a sleep sound machine for audio cues. The key is subtlety. These triggers shouldn't be strong enough to wake you up, just strong enough for your unconscious mind to detect. Now let's move to a technique that sounds counterintuitive, but produces incredible results. Neuropriming through chaos training. Most people think you need perfect quiet to learn effectively. Spies train in the opposite environment. They deliberately practice in noisy, chaotic, distracting conditions. The reason is simple. If you can maintain focus and recall information while someone is playing loud music, having conversations, and creating visual distractions, your brain develops what neuroscientists call cognitive resilience. When you later need to access that information in a quiet environment, it feels effortless. It's like training with weights and then running without them. Here's how intelligence agencies implement chaos training. They create learning environments with multiple sensory distractions, background conversations in different languages, flashing lights or changing colors, unexpected sounds like phone rings or alarms, even physical distractions like temperature changes or uncomfortable seating. In the middle of this chaos, operatives practice their learning tasks. They might be memorizing code sequences, studying maps, or learning new languages. The first few sessions are brutally difficult. Your brain fights against the distractions, and your retention feels terrible. But something amazing happens after consistent practice. Your brain starts building stronger neural pathways. It learns to filter out irrelevant information while laser focusing on what matters. You develop what trainers call selective attention under pressure. Let me share a specific protocol you can use. Start with your normal study material. Set up 3 types of distractions: audio distractions like multiple podcasts playing at low volume in different languages; visual distractions like a TV showing colorful, changing content with the sound off; physical distractions like a fan creating air movement or a timer beeping every few minutes. Begin with just 5 minutes of study in this environment. Focus on simple tasks first, like reviewing flashcards or reading short passages. Gradually increase the time and complexity as your brain adapts. After 2 weeks of chaos training, test yourself in a normal, quiet environment. You'll be shocked at how effortless normal studying feels. One student I know used this method to prepare for medical school exams. She studied in a busy coffee shop with construction noise outside. When exam day came in the quiet testing room, she said it felt like her brain was running in slow motion compared to her training environment. She had time to double-check answers and felt completely calm. The key is progressive overload, just like physical training. Start with mild distractions and gradually increase the chaos as your focus strengthens. This brings us to one of the most powerful techniques in the SPY memory arsenal, the 5-sense memory trick. Your brain doesn't store memories in isolation. It creates rich, multisensory networks that can be triggered by any of the original inputs. Intelligence operatives intentionally engage all 5 senses when learning new information. This creates multiple retrieval pathways for the same memory. Let's break down how to implement this systematically. For visual input, you're not just reading text. You're converting information into mental images, diagrams, and color codes. If you're learning historical dates, you might imagine each century as a different color. The 1800s might be deep blue, the 1900s bright red. This gives every date a visual signature that's much easier to recall than plain numbers. For auditory input, you're creating sound associations. This could be turning information into songs or rhymes. But it goes deeper than that. You might assign different musical instruments to different categories of information. Financial concepts get piano sounds. Marketing concepts get guitar sounds. When you need to recall something about marketing, you think of guitar music, and your brain automatically accesses the right category. For kinesthetic input, you're adding movement and touch. While studying, you might trace letters in the air or use hand gestures for different concepts. Some operatives learn building layouts by walking through miniature models with their fingers. The physical movement creates muscle memory that supports mental recall. For smell, you're using different scents for different subjects or types of information. Peppermint for mathematics, lavender for history, citrus for languages. After consistent pairing, just encountering these scents will prime your brain for those subjects. For taste, you might chew different flavors of gum for different study sessions, or drink specific teas while learning particular subjects. The taste becomes a retrieval cue that helps access the associated information. Here's a real-world example of how this works in practice. An operative learning to identify enemy aircraft might use this process. Visual, they study detailed photos and create color-coded diagrams of different aircraft features. Auditory, they listen to the actual engine sounds of each aircraft type. Kinesthetic, they build or handle scale models of the aircraft. Smell, they use different scented oils while studying each aircraft type. Taste, they chew different flavored gum while reviewing each category. After this multi-sensory training, they can identify aircraft much faster and more accurately than someone who just studied photos. In a field situation, any sensory input can trigger the complete memory. Hearing an engine sound immediately brings up the visual details, performance characteristics, and tactical information about that aircraft. You can apply this same principle to any learning task. Let's say you're learning a new language. Visual, use color-coded vocabulary cards and create mental images for each word. Auditory, listen to music in that language while studying and use rhythm to remember verb conjugations. Kinesthetic, act out verbs physically and trace letters while writing. Smell, use a specific scent only during language study sessions. Taste, eat traditional foods from that culture while practicing. This creates a rich sensory network around your language learning. When you need to recall a word in conversation, your brain has multiple pathways to find it. The next technique is probably the most famous spy memory method, the memory palace, also known as the method of Losha. But I'm going to show you how intelligence agencies use it differently than most people teach it. The basic concept is simple. You use a familiar physical space to store memories by mentally placing information at specific locations. Most people try to use elaborate fantasy palaces or famous buildings. Spies use their actual homes, offices, or neighborhoods. The reason is practical. In high-stress situations, you need memory triggers that are deeply familiar and emotionally neutral. Your childhood home or current apartment works better than an imaginary castle because you've walked through it thousands of times. Here's the spy-level implementation process. First, choose a space you know intimately. Your home is usually the best option. Walk through it physically and create a specific route. Maybe you start at the front door, go to the living room, then the kitchen, then upstairs to the bedrooms. The route should be logical and automatic. You shouldn't have to think about where to go next. Second, identify specific storage locations along your route. These should be distinct, memorable objects or areas. The doormat at your front door, the couch in your living room, the refrigerator in your kitchen, your bed in the bedroom. Aim for about 10 to 20 locations for your first memory palace. Third, and this is where spy training differs from typical advice, you assign categories of information to different rooms or areas. Maybe your living room is for storing names and faces, your kitchen is for technical procedures, your bedroom is for numerical information like codes or dates. This categorical approach makes retrieval much faster and prevents information from getting jumbled together. Fourth, when placing information at each location, you create vivid, often absurd mental images. The more unusual and emotionally engaging the image, the better it sticks. Let me walk you through a specific example. Say you need to memorize a list of chemical elements and their properties. You start at your front door and imagine hydrogen as a tiny balloon tied to your doorknob, so light it's trying to float away. You walk to your couch and see helium as a party balloon that's making squeaky voices come from your couch cushions. In your kitchen, lithium is a lightweight metal spoon that's so reactive it's sparking against your refrigerator. Each element gets placed at a specific location with a memorable image that captures its key properties. To recall the information, you simply take the same mental walk. When you arrive at each location, the image pops into your mind along with the associated information. Advanced practitioners create multiple memory palaces for different types of information. They might have one palace for faces and names, another for procedures, another for numerical data. Some operatives use their childhood neighborhood, placing different categories of information in different houses. The key to making this technique spy-level effective is regular maintenance. You need to walk through your palaces regularly, refreshing the images and associations. Most people create a memory palace once and then wonder why it stops working after a few weeks. Spies treat their palaces like physical spaces that need regular visits and upkeep. Here's a practice routine that works well. Every morning, do a quick walkthrough of your main palace. This shouldn't take more than 2 or 3 minutes. Once a week, do a thorough review where you consciously strengthen the images and add any new information. Once a month, consider reorganizing or expanding your palace if needed. The results can be extraordinary. I know someone who used this technique to memorize an entire medical textbook. She created a memory palace using her university campus, with different buildings for different body systems. The library was for the nervous system, the cafeteria for the digestive system, the gym for the muscular system. Within each building, she placed specific medical information at locations she knew well. She could recall detailed information about any medical condition just by taking a mental walk through the appropriate building. Now let's talk about a technique that can dramatically speed up your learning process. 10-minute burst learning with topic interleaving. Most people study one subject for hours at a time. They think longer sessions mean better learning. Intelligence training uses the opposite approach. Short, intense bursts of focused learning, followed by switches to completely different types of information. This technique is based on how your brain processes and consolidates memories. When you switch between different subjects, your brain has to work harder to adjust. This extra effort actually strengthens the neural pathways for both subjects. It's called the spacing effect, and it's one of the most robust findings in memory research. But spies take it a step further with strategic topic selection. They don't just randomly switch between subjects. They choose topics that have potential connections or can inform each other. Here's how the 10-minute burst protocol works. You study one topic for exactly 10 minutes with complete focus. No distractions, no multitasking, just pure concentration on that subject. Then you take a 2-minute break where you do something completely different. Maybe you do jumping jacks, or look out the window, or drink some water. The break activity should be physical or completely mental neutral. Then you switch to a different topic for another 10 minutes. The key is choosing your topic strategically. If you're learning Spanish, you might pair it with studying Latin American history. The historical context will help you understand cultural references in the language. If you're learning programming, you might pair it with studying logic or mathematics. The logical thinking skills transfer between both subjects. If you're studying for a business exam, you might interleave marketing concepts with psychology. Understanding human behavior will deepen your grasp of marketing principles. After 4 or 5 of these 10-minute bursts, you take a longer break of 15 to 30 minutes. This gives your brain time to start processing and connecting the information. The pattern might look like this: 10 minutes Spanish vocabulary, 2-minute physical break, 10 minutes Latin American history, 2-minute mental break, 10 minutes Spanish grammar, 2-minute physical break, 10 minutes cultural studies, 30-minute longer break. Then repeat the cycle with the next set of topics. This approach works because your brain loves to find patterns and connections. When you give it related but distinct information in short bursts, it automatically starts building bridges between the topics. You end up understanding both subjects more deeply than if you studied them separately. One intelligence analyst told me about using this technique to learn multiple foreign languages simultaneously. Instead of spending 3 hours on Arabic, then 3 hours on Farsi, he did 10-minute bursts alternating between the languages. He found that the similarities and differences between the languages became much more obvious. This helped him avoid mixing up vocabulary and grammar rules. In fact, understanding one language helped him learn the others faster. The same principle works for any combination of subjects. The key is finding topics that can inform or enhance each other. Students often use this to prepare for multiple exams simultaneously. Instead of cramming one subject at a time, they interleave related topics throughout their study sessions. The result is deeper understanding and better retention for all subjects. Here's how to implement this in your own learning. First, identify 3 to 5 topics you want to learn or improve. Second, look for potential connections between these topics. They don't have to be obvious connections. Sometimes the most surprising combinations work best. Third, create your burst schedule. Start with 10-minute bursts and adjust the timing based on what works for your attention span. Fourth, stick to the schedule religiously for at least 2 weeks. Your brain needs time to adapt to this new pattern of learning. Fifth, regularly review the connections you're discovering between topics. Keep a learning journal where you note interesting links or insights that emerge from the interleaving process. After 2 weeks, most people find that they're learning faster and remembering more than with traditional study methods. The constant switching keeps your brain engaged and prevents the mental fatigue that comes from long study sessions on single topics. Now let me put all of these techniques together in a practical week-by-week training plan. This is your roadmap.